And I'm Jeff Geerling, and I work for a company, Flocknote in Texas, but I also do work through my side business, Midwestern Mac. I've been using Drupal since '05, '06, that time period when it was transitioning to 4 to 5, and then been working on a variety of sites, small and big. And today, a few weeks ago, webchick Angela Byron, who's kind of the Drupal 8 sheep herder, was the Drupal 7 sheep herder for a while, and also wears like 15 other hats, posted this presentation, and she asked anybody at your local Drupal meetups, please give it. It's basically an overview of Drupal 8, what's coming down the line, and in some ways also that you guys here, even if you're not a programmer or a themer or whatever, there's ways that almost anybody can help, even if it's just donating a little money to a certain thing or giving a little time to review something or test something out. So anyway, the first slide just gives a little bit of my information. You can find me on Twitter, Google+, Facebook, whatever, wherever. I'm more active on Twitter than most other places, though. But I work for Flocknote, and if anybody here, if you use Drupal a lot, if it means something to you, becoming a member of the Drupal Association is a super easy, very good way to give back a little bit. It's $30, I think. And if you represent an organization, you can become an organization member. But you give a little money, you get a free T-shirt, and you get the pride of knowing that you're part of the Drupal community. So this little presentation, I'm going to try to keep it pretty short for you because don't want to be bored by it. But basically, we're going to talk about the different areas where Drupal 8 is expanding, getting better, and improving. But some of you guys here, including myself, might still be running sites on Drupal 6, maybe even Drupal 5 here and there. Why would we be talking about Drupal 8 at this time? Well, there's a couple reasons. One is that Drupal 8 is going to be, I think, kind of a watershed moment for Drupal, where it's really starting to hit its stride. Drupal 7 had a lot of great improvements, but kind of things didn't fall in place at the end. And so there's a lot of systems that are 90% of the way there. I think Drupal 8 is going to shore some of those things up and make things a lot better than they are right now. And where we are right now, Drupal 7 was released in early 2011. Drupal 8's Dries opened up Drupal 8 development in March, and this year in December is when feature freeze will happen. That means any of the big changes that people are making to Drupal, that stuff is stopping. And then things will still be done to the APIs and things like that to make them stronger until February 2013. And then from that point on, it's just full speed ahead, fix all the major bugs that are causing people to lose content, that kind of stuff. And Drupal will be released in August next year. So the feature freeze is coming up, and from now until that time, so about 5 months, we need to make sure that if you have any ideas, anything that's awesome or astounding or something that you hate about Drupal, those things can be changed, anything really. Everything that happens in Drupal is because somebody in the community wanted it to happen. It's not because Dries wants it or some big company does it. It's all a community, and like if you find this page looks horrible, well, you can fix that. Or if you're like, man, the documentation on the whole site is terrible, you can spend hours and fix that stuff. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how you can do that later. But anyway, the main theme is that it's time to start kicking butt with Drupal 8. This was a slide that Dries showed at DrupalCon and was inspirational to all of us because it has a cute baby. The only thing that could make it better was if there was a kitten too. And then also there's a caveat for this presentation that everything that's being discussed right here, it's all ongoing. So a few of these things, I just got this presentation last night, the most up-to-date version of it, but even some of the things in this presentation are a little bit different than from what's actually out there. And of course, webchick, being the community-minded person she is, she always wants to remind us that everything that happens in Drupal happens because of us. We can get anything that we want done, but every one of us, if we help with it, that's what makes it happen. So here's an overview of the major things that are going on in Drupal 8. These are things, the initiatives are things that Dries decided after Drupal 7 which was in some ways a mess in terms of the organization of how it was developed and who did what kind of thing. Nobody knew who to talk to about certain parts of the system, like the database, the next generation, and all these different big features that came in. So he put people in charge of these major initiatives, configuration management, web services, all these things. And there's information at the URL at the bottom that talks about where you can talk about it, what IRC channel, what Drupal group, the big issues that are happening right now, and they keep an update on where it is in development. Like you can see multilingual stuff that's already progressing along, that's getting close to finishing, whereas something like the layouts and panels and things like that, that needs a lot of help coding. But all these things need help from people who can do documentation or just test things, just give an opinion on something. But at this point, some of these things are starting to move into, we have an idea, now let's make it happen. So the first thing is some different changes that will happen that you'll see for people that use your Drupal sites more. Not necessarily the people building the sites or developing the sites, but the biggest thing is mobile development. Drupal 7 is often good in terms of the theming system and things like that. But there's some big flaws that we're needing to address. One of the biggest things is, one of the reasons why this is important is the next slide here shows. At the bottom there, the little blue orb, that's all the Drupal sites in the world right now. And then the next orange planet is CMS sites, like WordPress, Drupal, Joomla, Plone, all those kind of things. And then the next one is all the websites. That's the amount of traffic we're getting to all websites and things like that. In the mobile market, there's tons and tons of growth. Every year there's millions of more users on smartphones and on Android phones, iPhones, whatever. And in the next 5 years, we're going to see a huge change from people using desktop computers to people using different kinds of devices in all different formats. Phones up to TVs down to tablets and things like that. So Drupal really needs to shift a little bit to be ahead of the curve here because we're skating to where the puck is. So a couple of the kind of problems that we have here are when you go to a normal Drupal site on your mobile phone, this is what you see. You have to scroll left and right all the time and up and down, zoom in and out. It's just not a great experience. And like if you're on the administration side of the site, it's horrible. Like I don't know if any of you have tried this. Unless you really customize your theme, this is the kind of experience you get, and you got to scroll the whole time. It's not very optimal. So we want to make it look a lot better, and one of the big principles is designing for mobile first. So cutting out all features that aren't necessary, making content structured and ordered so it works great on a mobile device, and then we can scale up from there. So instead of designing for a 1024 pixel desktop, we design for a phone, and then we add to that to make our bigger layouts. And we use responsive design. At the last Drupal meetup, I talked a little bit about it. Like my personal website, it only took me a little bit of time to get that from a desktop layout to a mobile layout. But one of the key goals is to make things simple and then expand on them. And another thing that this helps with is front-end performance. Right now, like with Drupal and a lot of other projects, there's tons of resources that you have to download to your computer or your mobile device just to get the page to load. And things aren't minimized, jQuery and all these things. They take a lot of time to download, especially over a slow 3G connection or even 4G. The delays there are a lot greater. So anyways, simplifying things, minifying things, and concentrating on performance will help quite a bit. And if you want to help with any of this stuff, especially if you have a mobile phone and have an interest in making Drupal great on it, there's the information. John Wilkins is in charge of this initiative, and they meet on every other Wednesday at Drupal Mobile and the IRC channel. And so there you go. For each of these things, it'll give an overview and then how can I help on another slide. And by the way, all these slides and this entire presentation is on webchick.net and somewhere else too, I think, anyway. But you can get the most up-to-date version of it. The next thing is some authoring experience improvements. And Drupal has grown, here I'll go to this slide here, it's not that big, but Drupal has grown from like a site where somebody would post a little thing in plain text with a title and a body, and then it added taxonomy for tagging things, and it added this, and all of a sudden you had CCK for fields, which is now fields and core and Drupal 7, and then we added all these other little add-ons, and all of a sudden you have a create content form with tons of garbage underneath the title field, and unless you spend a lot of time fixing that up and tweaking it, it's a mess, even on a desktop browser, not just a mobile browser. And they made vertical tabs for Drupal 7 that cleans it up a little bit, puts it in a nice little box. But for Drupal 8, they want to make it awesome. Some of you guys might have used WordPress, but the proposal right now is something like this, where you have kind of your main fields and things, your title, body, and that kind of stuff, or whatever other fields are in the main area. And then on a sidebar, or on mobile it would be below, would be the other options and things like that. And they want to tweak this form so that it's highly optimized for people who are adding and editing content. Another big part of this is Spark, which is a distribution that Acquia and some people they sponsor are helping with. And Spark is set up to basically show off what we're thinking about, what we want to do, so you can actually download it and see what we're working on and offer more improvements. Or if you have something to offer back, you can do it through Spark. And the idea is that hopefully we'll get a lot of this stuff into Drupal core, make it really usable. And one of the big things is in-place editing. I know for a couple sites that I've done, I've used editable fields. It's a module that, if you have a field on a content type, when you're in a view or when you're viewing that node, you just click on the field and you can edit it, and then it saves it when you click off of it. That's great. It's not perfect for everything. Sometimes you got to hit edit and go into the editing form. But this is a big thing that a lot of people, they just get it. You click on that, change it, and it saves. Flickr's doing that now. I don't know if Facebook does that for some things. Like, a lot of sites are doing this, and it really helps people get the idea that you just click on something that you need to change it, and it's done. That's true WYSIWYG right there. So if you want to help with the usability stuff, here's the information for that. Again, you can find all this stuff online, so I'm not going to go through it. The next thing is changes for site builders. Probably more of our audience here in this room, people who are actually building Drupal sites. And one of the huge things is multilingual stuff, because I've done a tiny bit in Drupal 5, a little bit in Drupal 6, and a little bit in Drupal 7. And every time I do multilingual things, I decide, man, I don't ever want to do this again. And then I kind of stop doing it, and then it's half-baked. And that's kind of been how Drupal is in core as well. And because it's that way, this is kind of how it looks right now in Drupal 7. You have different modules mixing together, doing all these different little things, and you have to do language management in like 15 different places. It's just not a fun experience. So for Drupal 8, and I haven't been involved too much with this part of Drupal development, so I don't have a whole lot to say about it, but they're trying to make it simpler. All the language stuff is built into the core, all the APIs that you need, and then there's only a couple modules that you need to put in if you want to make a truly multilingual site. And another thing is to make English. Right now it's like you have English and then there's multilingual. So you have to do an extra step to get the other languages. They want to make it so English is the default language, but it's easy to swap in and out other languages, that kind of stuff. But if you want to learn more about that, there's the information, and you can help there. I would say fortunately and unfortunately, because I'd like to broaden my mind, but I have not had to do any huge multilingual sites at this point. But one of the sites I'm doing is turning into that, so I'm excited about this.
Hey, let's go.
The next thing is the blocks and layouts, or it has been named the SCOTCH initiative. I'm not sure what the SCOTCH is, except for they had whiskey, so they had to do SCOTCH too, something like that. Anyway, and as WebChick says, it's like panels in core, but better. I haven't
see that happen.
Yeah, I haven't used panels too much. I've tried it out a few times, but the principles behind panels are awesome and will make Drupal rock like crazy. But here's the problem right now is that, again, Drupal was built for a certain purpose and things kind of strapped into it. So Drupal's theming layer right now is a mix of there's like template regions and blocks and variables and all these different things in a theme file, that kind of stuff. And the idea of a block, it's a neat idea, but it's not really executed all the way. And as it says here, it's kind of an inside-out way of building things. And one of the things that bugs me a lot is that if you have one block, you can't have it in either like two regions on the same page, or you can't have it in one region on one page and one on another, because sometimes you don't want to make two blocks that do the same thing, but they're in different places. So there have been some modules like context and panels and some other things that help with that, but still they're kind of a mess. And there's too many things where it's like, this is great for this, but not for that. So we're trying to get panels and context type stuff into core, so that we can have a cleaner system where everything is a block, and you can reuse blocks on different layouts and things like that. And another thing, for one of the big sites I run, it's all authenticated traffic, so it's hard to do caching on it. There's a thing called edge side includes, where you can like send a full page cached and then throw in a block that's custom for that user. But it's hard to do in Drupal 6 and Drupal 7. With Drupal 8, they want to make it so that blocks can be kind of chunks of data, so that you don't have to hack things to get it working well with a system like Varnish or something like that. But one of the big things that's always been tough with this is the user interface for it, and I think that's still where things are kind of blocked right now. They're blocked. So they need lots of help on this, especially if you're somebody who does any interaction design or wants to help with that kind of stuff. They really need help with that. And the basic plan is that they would get panels in core. I think I think for Drupal 8 it might be less, judging by where they are right now, not the more part of that. But I think it'll be functional at least. And they're already getting some of CTools into core. More on that in a bit. And also have some of the main features of the block add-on type modules in the block system. So anyway, you can see the code in Eclipse's sandbox, and here's the information for how to help. And like I mentioned, some of CTools is going to be in core, and that's mostly because of this. I'm pretty sure all of you have used views before, because it's like if you have Drupal, you use views. It used to be Drupal CCK and views, but now fields are in core. What's next? Views. There's only one site I've ever built in Drupal that I didn't use views, because views is just that awesome, that flexible, and that important towards pretty much every site. In my mind, that's basically the reason for Drupal's dominance over WordPress in terms of more customized or more robust sites. So anyway, and the other problem is, this is what happened with Drupal 7. It started getting developed in 2009, so there's not much there. It was released in January 2011, but if you see that brown line there, the brown line didn't start going up for a very long time after Drupal 7 was released. Part of that was Drupal still had a few bugs here and there, but the biggest part was, guess what happened in July 2011? Views finally came out for Drupal 7, kind of stable. So obviously Views is important to Drupal's success, and having it in core will make Drupal that much better. And the hope is that also it will help keep Views coming out with new releases and not have that lag time there. So then after 13 months, finally Drupal 7 usage surpassed Drupal 6. And I think with Views in core, we're going to find a lot quicker curve of that usage, and Drupal adoption is going to go way up through the roof, especially if it's out the day that Drupal's released. So, and if you've never used Views, which I'm sure most of you have, it does awesome things like helps you build these kind of user listings with a couple clicks of a button. It helps you make listings of content that are highly customized with pictures and links and do whatever. At DrupalCon, there was an awesome presentation on some more advanced things you can do with Drupal, where you have different views attachments in the same page, and you're clicking through content, and it's all just you click a few buttons and it's done. That's powerful, because otherwise you're sitting there writing out queries and trying to optimize them and pulling in the information and theming them. Views does all that for you. It's great. So for Drupal 8, they already have an 8x branch for it. And it works if you use it with Drupal 8 when you download it today. But the big things that need to happen are getting more of CTools into core, things that Views relies on, and making a Views UI that's also integrated with core. Right now, Views uses its own kind of conventions with you hit the plus and it drops down the thing, and that happens, and then you click on this and it pops up an overlay thing, but it's not really an overlay, it's a CTools modal. all these little things that are different. So we're trying to get that all unified, so there's not like this module does it this way and that module does it that way. When it's in core, that should be uniform across the board. So if you want to help, obviously if you're a programmer, please program and help with that. But I did this, and anybody here, that's actually like 3 or 4 weeks out of date, I think, because we're up to over $10,000 now. But even if you can give a little amount, big amount, whatever you can, that will help, because Earl Miles, I think, is Merlin of Chaos. He's going to be kind of the main guy behind a lot of this stuff. So if we can sponsor him and sponsor whoever he wants to help him get this stuff all done, that's going to be big for Drupal. And then next is changes for designers and front-end developers. I remember a few months ago we had a discussion about Drupal and theming, and Drupal theming has never been as easy as WordPress or some other things. Well, I think with Drupal 8, if we can get this stuff done, is going to be, we're going to kind of take a large leap ahead of most other CMSs out there that I've used, Joomla, WordPress, Plone, .NET Nuke, and all these things, in terms of how easy and awesome it is to theme in Drupal. First of all, everything's going to be HTML5 in Drupal, and there's a lot of progress on this already. HTML5 form elements, so if you tap on the phone thing on your iPhone or your Android phone, a number pad comes up instead of a pad with letters, and then you have to change it to numbers. And validation is easier this way too. There's a few old browsers that don't support this stuff as well, but there's some JavaScript that's involved that'll help it with that kind of stuff too. But anyway, you can use HTML5 form elements. The page will be HTML document type instead of XHTML 4.1 or whatever it was. And all the markup will be HTML5 with the sides and all that jazz, basically. And another big part of this is something that, as webchick says, the markup in Drupal right now causes Jeffrey Zeldman to cry. He's a kind of a web standards guy, writes a lot about standardization and markup and things like that. And this is not uncommon. Almost every Drupal site has pages like this. Not everybody has time to go into views and set classes for each field and turn off all the markup. So you end up with div, 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 and then your data's in like 15 divs with like 75 classes. So in Drupal 8, we're hoping to have more standardized components for Drupal. Sorry. That's fine. For Drupal 8, we're working on a standard set of components. So like for an image, you have image tag. There can be a, what is it called in HTML5, a figure, which you have a figure with a caption. And for all the different things, unordered lists, ordered lists, and everything will have a standard pattern. And Jacine, I think that's how you pronounce her name, I hope that is. She has a demo of all these things on GitHub, kind of the patterns that we want to use in Drupal, yeah.
So like within Drupal, is there like a dedicated mechanism for generating lists that like the menu system would kick into?
Like right now in Drupal 6, 7, 5, we use the theme system where you say theme item list and then give it some variables and it spits out an item list. I'm pretty sure that is going to be the same or similar, but right now there's so many different templates and theme functions for so many different things. There's like theme menu item list and theme item list and theme all these weird things.
Right.
Like we just have theme item list and you add in a thing and it's menu. That kind of stuff is what we're hoping to do here. And also, like, I don't know. I mean, every time that I have to find a theme function, I'm like, why is there like 3 things for this? And why is it in this module? Why isn't it all just unified? So anyway, Jacine, she's doing crazy amounts of work on this stuff, and she has a couple blog posts that have a lot of in-depth research about it. And something that excites me too, because I like having very simple themes. Separating your code from your theme is huge, and Drupal does a pretty good job of it, but not perfect. There's still, right now we're using PHP template for a theme engine, so themers can basically do whatever they want and cause huge security problems. They can cause your site to crash just because they wrote something in the theme that's in PHP, that kind of stuff. So Drupal 8 is going to have Twig in core, At least I'm 99% sure on that. I think that Dries just made that decision last week or something like that. But in Drupal 7, you have PHP, and basically every themer has to become somewhat of a programmer just to make a theme, because they have to at least understand if and else if and end if and how to do an opening and closing PHP tag and all that stuff. For Drupal 8, we don't want to make themers have to learn PHP necessarily. They could if they want to do other things or build a module or something, but we want themers to theme and design because that's what they're best at. So in Twig, it uses a more standardized markup language that still has a lot of the functionality that we have in PHP template, but it doesn't let them use PHP in a theme to screw things up. And it helps you separate, instead of doing these things in your template file, do it in your code and then send it to your template file.
Is there a performance in that? I've never used Twig before.
There is and there isn't. That's being discussed right now, and they're doing a little research on it, but it looks like it will be even. There's a couple trade-offs that we make by going to Twig and having to add that in, but since I'll talk about this in a couple minutes, but since we're using Symfony components in core and Twig is part of that, it's also more tied into that system, and so that will be good. But I know there's an issue talking about Twig's performance, and it's gone both ways, I think. And then the next slide is one of my favorite of all time in all of my development career. IE6 and IE7 are not going to be supported at all. Obviously, if something is working, we're not going to break it, but we're not taking an issue that's done and saying, oh, let's spend another 8 weeks on this, making it work in Explorer 7. So that's a great thing, and that was, IE6 was decided about 6 months ago, and IE7 pretty shortly after that. Twitter, there were a lot of retweets of Dries' announcement of dropping support, which is nice. I mean,
do you happen to know off the top of your head what IE7's market share in the U.S. currently is?
I Pingdom had some stats on this, and so did a couple other sites. I'm pretty sure I know it's under 5%, I think under 3%. Okay. And, I mean, for my sites, there's one site that I do for a religious organization, which has much older community. They have less than 1%. And a tech site that I do, it has less than like 0.2% or something. I mean, it is dead, and we want it to be dead, and now, it's dead to us. So I'm happy about that. Saved me lots of hours.
5.11%.
5.1, okay. So, no, all those corporate people still using it. All right, so the next few slides are about some changes for programmers, coders, and webchick says things are about to get geeky. A big one that I am interested in right now is web services, or they say WSCCI, WSCCI. This goes along with SCOTCH. They used to be together, services and panels, whiskey and SCOTCH, so something there. I don't know the naming behind it, but anyway, web services component core initiative. I don't know. And it's like the services module being in core, but better. And I would say it's much better because it's not quite like services module in core. Because services module, if anybody's ever had to work with it, kind of hacks around a lot of things and doesn't get great performance. Because right now, Drupal, since its earliest days, has been built to you go to a URL and then it spits out a web page on a desktop computer. Like that's what Drupal does. It's built to make web pages, and that's it. But a lot of people are doing things like they're trying to get JSON out of Drupal so you can use a mobile app. Well, what happens is you have to do a full Drupal bootstrap, and your PHP process is using like 70 or 80 megabytes of RAM, and your database is being hit by all this stuff, and it loads up your theme system, and it loads up the language translation system, all these things that are not really necessary if you're just trying to say, I want JSON of the count of nodes in this group. You don't have to do all that stuff just to get that.
Is that by using Views data source?
Well, you could do it that way, but Drupal core is going to be moving away from custom solutions like that to the point where, and this is where Symfony comes in. We get a request and then we process that request, and it doesn't have to involve all the systems of Drupal. You can just grab the request and say, I just want to throw back this JSON, because people are using Drupal. Like I usually am doing things like an iPhone app or an Android app. I'll need a listing of the nodes that are in this content type or something for this particular user, and I get the JSON, but it's kind of hacky. You set up a menu path for it, and then you return the JSON, but Drupal still has to load all its stuff, and then you have to call exit or Drupal exit or something like that to get out before it prints anything to the page. So that's not ideal. And for Drupal 8, they're going to be incorporating Symfony, which is a component library, framework, I guess you could say, for PHP that's already has basically all the features we were thinking about, except it's really well done. And the Symfony community has been talking with the Drupal community quite a lot. And the guy who's in charge of this, Krell, Larry Garfield, he works for Palantir. He spoke at their conference, and the guy who's the kind of the benevolent dictator of Symfony spoke at DrupalCon, and he's speaking at the next DrupalCon, I think, doing a keynote, I think, actually. And so it's exciting because it's two big PHP projects coming together to do things better for both of us, because we're giving them improvements in like user handling and things, and finding some bugs in their code that they can get it stronger, and we're getting a lot of free help with making sure that getting a request and sending out data is a lot better for us, and that's in Drupal. A lot of times people are like, well, we should do it the Drupal way. Well, it's like some things are better the Drupal way, but a lot of times if there's 50 people doing it one way, why don't we just do it that way too? And then we get all those 50 people can pop right into Drupal and do it the same way. The not invented here syndrome, as it's called. So, as WebChick would say, this was proudly this was probably invented elsewhere. Proudly invented elsewhere. So anyway, there's the stuff that you can look at to get involved with it.
Can I pause you for 1 second?
Yeah.
I helped start the meetup group in Springfield, Missouri.
Uh-huh.
And I wonder if I can just take a couple pictures. We're kind of fledgling right now, and we've got like 5 to 6 people.
Yeah.
Would that be okay if I just kind of took a few?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fine.
I'm gonna get out of your hair after that.
Yeah. Do you want to take? Okay. The next big thing is configuration management, and if you're running just a small site for a school or something that everything is done on the server, this is never a big deal. But once you start doing something that's more involved, or like a couple of the main projects I work on, if we lose data or something, that's a big no-no, and we can't have downtime. So I can't work on the live server. I work on my local computer. Then we push those changes up to a development server. People test it there. Then it goes to the live server. Or some people even have more steps in that workflow. It goes to a testing server, then a development server, that kind of thing. So one of the problems is, what if you want to have somebody work on your content on your local computer and then move on to the development server, push that content up, or keep content in sync between them, or if they make a change to a view here and they need to get it up to the development server and the live server. So there's a few different things that we want to have happen. Like right now, for one of the sites I run, I export all the views into code and then put the views on the main server, and then that way if I make a change in the view on my local computer, I can use git and push that change up to the server, and it takes it right away. Whereas if you do it, a lot of people you make a change to views on your computer, and then you kind of write down, as WebChick would say on a napkin, you write down what you did, and then you go on the main server and you do those changes again. Well, there's always human error, and there's always, I forgot to write down this step, and then you break your view and you're like, what the heck? Also other things like if you change the site name, or if you change the database settings, or all these different tweaks that you do, you want to be able to manage that easier. Currently in Drupal, it's tough, and there's the features module. There's hook update functions, which is what I typically use, just because features, when I started using it, was kind of not complete yet. There's a couple other things that people use to get content and settings between the different servers.
Thanks.
So yeah. And so here's an illustration. You have a node here, node 4, and it's on your local computer and your live computer, or on your live server. But then if you have a change to it, and you want to push it up to your live server, then all of a sudden you're going to screw up the live server because it's things on your local computer aren't the same, and your environment's not the same. And also, if you made a new node on your local computer and there was a new node with the same node ID on the live server, you'd overwrite that node if you just said push up node 4 or something like that. And you can't really sync the two either. So besides configuration with content like nodes and things like that, everything will have a unique UD ID. UUID, whatever that acronym is. It'll have a unique ID that's unique across everywhere, so you can sync content between your different servers and things like that. Or you could export a piece of content to code, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Has the user interface for this module, for this part of Drupal been hashed out yet?
No. This is something that's still, the UDID, whatever that acronym is, that stuff is working, but there's nothing, like, they just have it working. Like, everything has an ID, but nothing is done with it yet. So that's an area that we need help. But another big problem is with configuration. Like for my big site right now, every time I make a change, I write an update function for a module, and I change a variable using variable set, and I might update the database with something. I might add a field to the database, and if I want to load a new image style or something like that, I export it to code, then I put it in the update function. It's just a huge mess, and it'd be so easy if I could just click on that image style page, export this, or save it to my disk, and then I can commit it to Git and then send it up to the server. Other people, there's some Drush stuff that helps with it. CTools, you can integrate your module with CTools to do some exportables through it, but not everything has done it, and it's a mess kind of right now. So they're trying to get a lot of this stuff into core. So when you want to push something up to the when you want to push something up from your computer to the website, you can save it to a file, commit it in your version control, and push it up, and things will kind of connect up. So here's an illustration that shows, this node has this particular ID, and it can sync them. Even if it's on here, it's node 4, and there it's node 4. It knows this node 4 is actually this one, not node 4 on the live server. And so anyway, this stuff I think is still, it's not in the early planning stages. They have an idea what they're doing, but a lot of code needs to be written for it still, and a lot of, like you were saying, the user interface for this stuff, that stuff is not happening yet. So, anybody that can help with that, even if it's just giving ideas, or if you have any experience in, doing this kind of stuff, help out, please. So another couple things that are happening in Drupal 8 right now, obviously we're using Symfony. That was actually committed just a couple weeks ago, so that there's a lot of other issues that are starting to rely on Symfony components can start happening. So we're using other people's code to make our project better. A big thing with that was when we started using jQuery. Drupal pulled in jQuery, and Drupal and jQuery have a great relationship, and that's been a great move because there's a lot of JavaScript stuff that is so easy to do in Drupal because you always know jQuery will be there, and now jQuery UI is there, so you don't have to do your own thing or add a jQuery for all this stuff. And also a lot of Drupal core is becoming object-oriented, whereas in the past almost everything was built functionally, and like nodes and things are objects, but they're not really objects. They're kind of just a weird bundle of arrays that was turned into an object somehow mysteriously. So things, and this is happening in a big way with Entity API, and it's kind of turning a lot of things, fieldable objects, into more advanced, helpful stuff, something like that. Anyway, also there's the test bot has improved its performance. There were some blog posts about that I think a month or two ago. File API and Media API, I haven't been following that too much, but I know the Media module's undergone a lot of progress. The first time I tried using it, it was like way beta, messed up stuff all over the place. But I used it again a few weeks ago, and it was close to where I would say I want to use this on one of my sites. And I have a pretty high bar for that. So, and there's plenty of other stuff that's happening. And if you want to see what's happening, what's changed in Drupal 8, there's a page, drupal.org/list changes, where you can literally see every single change. And this is something that's a lot better now in Drupal 8 than it was in Drupal 7 and 6. Every single change that happens, especially if it's an API change or something that'll change what your code does, is listed here. And in the past, there have been some things that they kind of slip under the radar, they're not documented, and then you find out about it when you're upgrading or something. You're like, wait a second, that doesn't work anymore. Now we're documenting these things so you can run through the list and see what you need to see. And so far, there have been over 600 contributors. I think for Drupal 7, there were over 1,000 by the end of it. And webchick always is pointing out that we need you. And even if you're not going to do 100 things, even if you're not going to do programming and code and stuff like that, it could just be fixing some documentation on something you find that was, if something puzzles you, like this is the first thing I did was, I don't remember exactly what it was. I think it was some theming documentation. I was doing something, I'm like, this does not make sense to me. What's written here does not look like what I just did. So then I rewrote that, and that might have helped 100 other people. Like, how do you just make a basic theme in Drupal? That the documentation on that was lacking. So if you find something where you're confused by it, help the documentation. If you find something where you think, oh wow, this is a performance problem, like why are they loading 14 pictures on this one page, like for a dot or something, fix that kind of thing. Or even if it's just going through an issue queue and saying this is not a bug and closing that out, that helps the developers not have to deal with the noise. But one of the things that we're kind of reaching a point right now, and we reached this point a few months ago but kind of settled back from it, where a few core developers who do probably 50 or 60% of the work involved, the grunt work involved in a lot of these things, they had a lot of burnout, and a few developers that they started doing some blog posts about how this is ridiculous and things need to change and all this stuff. And when you have a few people doing most of the work, sometimes they can feel not very appreciated if somebody's being a jerk to them or somebody's holding up something that they've spent a lot of their last 6 months of their life on or something like that. So one thing is try not to take things personally on Drupal.org, because we're a multilingual, multinational community where sometimes things are lost in translation too, and also a lot of people feel like people are giving a lot of input and negative input, but not really helping at all. So if you're going to help, try to be positive and try to give code if you can, or illustrate something very well. Give good bug reports instead of saying this doesn't work. Say why you found it doesn't work, and see if you have a theory on how you can improve it. Webchick, as I said, is always interested in getting people involved in development. And here's a few myths that she would like to bust. First of all, a lot of people think that you have to be a very bright and crazy, insane, smart person to help with open source software. Kind of like if you want to help with Linux or something, you have to be a genius. And that's not really true. And especially in Drupal, this is true that anybody can contribute. So a lot of people will say, this is a stupid thing. Like, I hate how this works. And a lot of people will say, I really want to see this get fixed. And then the third group of people says, I can actually help you with this. Like, they might be a programmer, might be a themer, or they might have money in some people's cases. And it's the people who have all three of these things that are the people that do the most for open source software. So I think most of the people here at least could do something, even if it's just helping with a little thing somewhere. And then another myth is that some people think that somebody has a great idea, Gina the genius, as it is here on this slide. Brilliant idea. They write up some code, and everybody thinks the code is amazing, it's great, and then it's committed. But that's not how it is. It's a process, and this is where some of the burnout comes. If you get in this process too much and don't take a breather or something, a lot of times it can make you feel bad about yourself. But you have somebody here, Edwina, the end user. I didn't make these names, so you can't make fun of me. They're angry about something, so they go into an issue queue for a module or for Drupal core, and they file a bug report. And then Paula, the programmer, or CHX, Chicks, whatever you call his name, comes in and says, hey, look, a bug report. And they try fixing it. So then they file a patch and then put it to needs review. Hopefully somebody will review it and say, this is great, and commit it. But then somebody tests it and finds out, what? This is completely not right. And then they give feedback, set the issue back to needs work, and then the programmer puts a little more effort into it. And then somebody who's stuck, oh, that was a good one. Oh, shoot. Hold on. I have to get my slamming on Internet Explorer 6 because it's taken away so much of my life. needs work, and then,
Well, we no longer support it, so the slide's outdated, I guess.
well, yeah, this slide is slightly outdated. But anyway, somebody who's stuck on Windows XP says it doesn't work in IE6, and then we say, who cares? We don't care about that. But there's some spelling problems, so we need to go back to work. So anyway, an issue queue, every issue in Drupal core, and even like there's even some small issues in a module or something that are having, it's a little problem, but it takes time. So it's not going to be an instant, here's the code, it's awesome, done. If you help with something, the first couple times, just expect this experience to be a little longer, but it makes the product awesome. It makes Drupal amazing. And this slide just shows a few statistics of people who come into Drupal, they download something, but there's a problem that we're trying to get more people to come in, download something, think it's awesome, and then say, how can I make this better? Instead of saying, oh, I'm done, no need to help, Drupal back. This stat shows how few people actually, after they get Drupal and start using it, how few people actually come back and do something again for Drupal. Whether it's documentation or helping in an issue queue or whatever. And as she notes here, the actual percentage of people who do things after they register a Drupal account is even lower than that little itty-bitty wedge on that slide. So we want to try to expand that. I mean, it's never going to be 25% or 10%, but if we could get it to 1%, that would be awesome. And it used to be more like that when there were less people using Drupal, more programmers using Drupal. But anyway.
Less people, more programmers.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So anyway, the core idea is that it's time to start moving on things. We're far along in the development cycle, but it's definitely not too far for big things to happen. There's those main initiatives, but that's not all that's going to happen. There's other things that are happening right now, and there's other things you can do to help make things better. And if you've never done any development with Drupal before, or if you've never done anything but you want to help out, there's mentoring hours, and there's a lot of people that help with this that, they're great at helping you. You might not even know how to make a patch, or you might not know how to edit a page on Drupal.org. They'll tell you how to do anything. And when I started with Drupal, I didn't know a whole lot about it either, but I hopped on IRC. And I asked a couple questions, and I think webchick was one of the first people that responded. I was like, I want to be able to edit this page because the documentation is horrible. And she's like, oh, well, go here and do this. They're so cheerful and happy. I don't know how they do it, especially webchick, since she does like 90 things a minute. Anyway, so this, you can find people to help you, even if it's something simple. Any question goes. And also, there's a channel, Drupal Contribute, where a lot of the core developers hang out in there. So if you find something they're working on and you want to help with it, or you have a question about it, or you have a really brilliant idea, ping them in there by typing their name and then a little question or something, and usually they'll answer you.
What server is that on?
Freenode.
Freenode?
Yeah, freenode.net. And if you go, I think Drupal.org/IRC gives you information about joining IRC, and you can even do it online if you don't want to use a client or something like that through I don't remember what. Freenode has an online client that you could use. So let's see. And also, if you go to Drupal.org/community-initiatives/Drupal core, this actually has an overview of everything that we've talked about, what's going on in it, the big issues that need to happen right now, and some of them too, they even have it sorted out, like here's some things that if you've never done anything before, do this. It's really easy, like just change this line, or we need somebody to type up a summary of what all this says. Like that's a lot of times that's the biggest blocker, is there's an issue with 100 comments, but nobody's summarized what everyone's kind of saying. So that issue gets kind of stuck in limbo until somebody goes in, reads all the comments, and says, here's what people are saying about this, and here's what's happening. And anyway, these slides were made by these people here, so you can, thank them somehow. And then thank you, and questions and stuff.